I've been alone for the past few years. Being 50-something, graying and alone, it was never easy. And because I wasn't social, I didn't have much friends. But thanks to the app Grindr, it helped me connect and date other men. I eventually met this guy. He was a lot younger and seemed to be in his early 30s. After a while, I recognized a spark I hadn't felt in years. At first, we chatted through text, and so, our conversations quickly extended to social media platforms like Instagram and Snapchat. Then, it didn't take long before we started calling each other on the phone. He had a deep voice that made me feel comfortable talking to him.
You're really into an old guy like me? Old? You got experience. That's what I like. You should come over one day and have some cocktail. I'm not talking about drinks either. In time.
The calls grew bolder and spicier. I would nervously flirt and whisper things I hadn't said out loud in decades. A part of me was ashamed because of my old age, but the youthful spirit inside me acknowledged the thrill of the experience. Soon after, video calls followed. Anyone who saw them would agree that he was hot. I knew that connecting online wasn't enough. I had to see him in person, and it was something we both agreed on. We set a date to meet up for a night of wine, Netflix, and business, as we'd put it. So, while waiting for him, I prepped the apartment, dimmed the lights, and poured the wine. When he finally arrived, he was even more handsome in person, a dangerous kind of handsome. We drank, chatted, and laughed as we got to know each other. But the more we drank, the more tension there was between us. We decided to put on Netflix as the heat was building up. Then, it happened. It was spontaneous as hell. It went on for about 5 minutes before we both finally finished. Then, we both laid in bed relaxing after that roller coaster ride. But then that's when the awkwardness began to creep in.
So, you gonna take an Uber or what? It's late, so I just figured... You figured what? Am I some piece of meat you throw out the window? I was going to leave, but now I'm staying. Look, I wanted a one-night stand. That's it, okay? A one-night stand! After I gave you the NASA rocket ship? This is how you treat me? Get the hell out of my house or I'm calling the cops!
Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Then, without another word, he lunged at me. I dropped to the floor and then we wrestled. Time wasn't on my side. If anything, I was losing it. I needed to get to the door fast. The guy was younger and stronger than me. I fought back, clawing, kicking, anything to get him off of me. We were both in our underwear, but the drastic change from passion to aggression was too much for me to handle. He then took a pillow and tried suffocating me. Death had never been so close in my entire life. I was panicking, but as I kicked, I was able to get him off of me enough to get up and run for the door. But that's when he pulled me back and slammed me to the floor. I was dazed. All I remember seeing was him standing over me. And then the next thing I knew, my lights shut off when he made one large jump on my throat. The young man then sat on the couch in a room that was full of passion moments earlier, but was now full of blood. He held a machete, his adrenaline still high, and his entire body was shaking from all that rage. At first, he was merely staring at the floor, but like a madman, he cried and smiled simultaneously, confused and lost in his own thoughts. Then, in the middle of that dark room, he swung his machete, mumbling nonsensical words over and over as the guilt ate away at him. I tried calling him multiple times, but he wouldn't answer my calls, and that was so unlike him. That's when I decided to visit his place, and when I entered the house using a spare key, the stench of iron hit me. It was thick and rich in a sickening way. I then turned on my camera and recorded the entire thing for the police. It was the inside of a horror house where there were bloodstains scattered all over the walls. I tried calling out to my friend, but no one answered. I was hesitant to head upstairs, but I needed the courage to follow the trail of blood leading deeper into the house. When I entered the bedroom, I saw pieces of him all over the floor, then immediately left and called the police. They were able to identify the suspect through Grindr and eventually arrest him. But what makes this case all the more disturbing was how after reviewing the footage I took that day, I could see the killer hiding under the couch. All this time, while taking a video around the house for the cops, he was there the entire time. It gives me chills knowing I could have easily suffered the same fate as my friend. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a gruesome murder scene that was discovered at a Tampa home on East Okara Road. Police say 53-year-old Rob O'Connor was taken out by a man he met on a dating website called Grindr. Lazaro Martinez Rojas is now facing a first-degree charge in O'Connor's passing. Now the victim's best friend is speaking out about the horror of finding his friend. Robert Graytag Jr. said he can't get the images out of his head. It's a horrific thing to walk into a home and find blood in your best friend's house, Graytag said. Investigators say O'Connor and Rojas met on Grindr and then eventually met at O'Connor's home where detectives say the two hooked up. Later, O'Connor asked Rojas to leave. That led to a violent confrontation. Records show the slaying was caught on home surveillance video. They said it captures Rojas strangling O'Connor and standing on his throat until his body goes limp. Rojas then mutilated the body with a large kitchen knife. After not hearing from O'Connor for several days, Graytag and other friends went to check on him, and that's where they made the horrific discovery. What was even more chilling was how Rojas was still hiding in the house. We didn't know what we were encountering, so I had my camera and I did record the scene. And when I looked back on it, and I saw him under the couch in my recording, my hair just stands on edge now, thinking that you can see his hair sticking out of the couch, said Graytag. Rojas remains in jail with no bond. Grindr made it so easy. When I wanted some action, I didn't even have to leave the house. All I had to do was swipe through a few dozen men, message a handful of them, talk with one or two for a bit, and then bam, they'd be sprawled out on my bed within a few hours of the onset of my desire. I entirely reject the idea of going anywhere after sleeping with someone, so I always made them come over to my place. For the longest time, I would have men coming in and out of my house, not having any lasting effect on my life. I abhorred the thought of relationship drama consuming my life, so I never let anyone get close. But that all went out the window with this guy named Ben. At first, there was nothing particularly interesting or attractive about Ben. If anything, I thought he was actually kind of ugly for my standards. But I guess I was in a bit of a dry spell, or I just didn't care what he looked like as long as he could deliver. I didn't really think much of it. I just knew that he said he was down to come over for a good time. So I sent him my address and got ready while he was on his way. When I opened the door, I realized I had made a mistake. Ben was far uglier in person than he seemed in his photos, which I should have expected. He just kind of stood there like a coat rack, with no real style or thought put into the way he was dressed, with a long ugly scarf as the cherry on top. I swear, if he had smelled, I would have just slammed the door in his face right then and there. I only let him in because I was too lazy to go through the moderate effort of going back on Grindr to find a new hookup. However, I only regretted my decision even more. When Ben walked in, he didn't take off his jacket or shoes. He just looked around and said I had a nice place before asking to use the bathroom. I told him where it was down the hall. Then I took a seat on the couch. I had set out a bottle of wine and 2 glasses on the coffee table, like I like to do when I have guests. And of course, I was waiting for him to get back before opening the bottle. I like to make it obvious that I've put nothing nefarious in the wine. I expected Ben to take a few seconds, maybe a minute or two, but then the minutes kept ticking by with no sign of him. I was wondering what in God's name he was doing in there. Had I just let some homeless man wander into my house to shower in my sink and savage my toilet? Finally, I got up to go check on him. The bathroom door was closed, and the light was on, but I didn't hear the fan or any running water. I knocked on the door and asked him if he was okay, only to hear silence, and then to my left, a bump from inside my bedroom. I called out to Ben and asked him what he was doing. I heard him say he got lost, which I instantly knew that he was lying. To catch him by surprise, I barged into my room. There he was, fully clothed, shoving the contents of my nightstand into his pockets. Even my iPad was sticking out from his coat. I rushed up on him and started ripping things out. He fought back against me, but I was so angry that I didn't feel any of the pain as he was hitting me. Finally, I couldn't see anything else to grab, so I shoved him away. He kept trying to make excuses, like he was just looking for something, or that he was going to take the stuff out to the living room. but it was obviously just a bunch of bullshit. I had to yell in his face 10 times to get the hell out of my house before he took the first step out of my bedroom. It had been a complete failure of a night, and I figured he was probably still walking out with something of mine. But at least I was walking him down the hall and wouldn't have to deal with him after a few more seconds. That's what I thought anyway. But those few seconds didn't play out exactly how I thought.
I can't believe you. I had a feeling you weren't even gay. You just wanted to rob me, you son of a bitch. Get out before I change my mind about calling the cops. Hey, don't stop. The door is right there, asshole.
Would you still be interested in sharing that wine?
Excuse me? Why would I want to share anything with you? I just caught you stealing from me. Were you dropped on your head as a child? Hello, dumbass. Turn around.
What is this? Sweet Shiraz. Very nice.
Like you even know what that is. Give me that.
You should have minded your own business.
This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a gay man who was strangled, taken out, and then had his body doused in bleach by a man he met on Grindr. Victor Najero Batanzo's remains were found in his apartment in Houston, Texas. Prosecutors found that his truck, iPad, and iPhone had been stolen. Benjamin Davis, 29, was spotted driving Batanzo's stolen truck and was arrested by investigating officers. Davis told police that he joined Grindr after hearing that it was a good place to find people to rob. He struck up a conversation with Batanzo's on the gay dating app, and the pair arranged to meet and hook up at the victim's apartment. However, Davis went to the apartment with the express intention of robbing his victim. Once inside the apartment, he allegedly knocked Batanzo's unconscious and used a scarf to strangle him. Once Batanzo's was gone, Davis allegedly doused the body in bleach in an effort to get rid of any evidence that could tie him to the crime. He then fled the scene, taking some of Batanzo's possessions and stealing his truck. Davis has a history of violence, according to police. He was charged and sentenced accordingly.
I always had terrible luck on Grindr. Despite still being young, I'm actually trying to find someone to settle down with. Of course, everyone on Grindr is just looking to hook up. However, I recently found this guy named Steven who was different than most on the app. He was a little on the older side, but seemed to be exactly what I wanted. He was nice to talk to over the phone, and unlike me, he had his whole life put together. He was a vegetarian in the Navy, graduated from Oxford, and had quite a lucrative career. But he didn't go into detail about what he did for work, as he said it was classified. Unfortunately, he wasn't really my type, physically speaking. Even though it looked really well done, I could tell his hair was fake. My dad always used to fuss about his toupee, so I know how to spot one. That, and well, he was just kinda ugly. I only gave him the time of day because he was the first guy I'd met with who was willing to get to know me before trying to sleep with me. I thought I'd finally found someone who wasn't just out to use my body, and since it was a struggle for me to meet people by going out, I didn't want to pass on him without giving him a chance. So, after Steven and I talked for a few days, we made plans for a date, which I stressed would not be ending with intercourse. He wanted to host me for dinner, claiming he'd make me anything I wanted. I was excited on the way there, hoping his wealth and cooking skills could make up for his face, but I was also quite nervous, as this was my first time actually meeting someone from Grindr. Sadly, his apartment building looked a lot humbler than I was expecting for a man who graduated from Oxford, but I figured he just preferred to live modestly. As I made my way to his apartment, however, this proved not to be the case. I realized I was almost in a dark, unfamiliar neighborhood, meeting up with a stranger I met online. I almost backed out of the whole thing, but I was already right there, so I didn't want to be rude. I took a deep breath and went through with it by knocking on the door. Where the hell is this guy? Oh, hey!
Good evening. What brings a fine fellow like yourself to my door?
You're Steven, right? I'm Daniel. We're supposed to, never mind. I'm actually not sure if I have the right place. I'm gonna go.
No, you do. I was just being silly. I'll stop. Come in. I'm sure you're used to saying that, huh?
To be honest, I don't know. You don't exactly look like your pictures. Sorry, I don't think I should.
I'll take that as a compliment. Everyone always tells me I look better in person, right?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, come on, nipple rings. I know you're being nervous, but I won't bite. I promise. Just come inside. It's getting cold out here, and that's not good for the both of us downstairs, you know.
I'm not sure if I can.
I'm making us dinner, remember?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I guess I'll... Whoa! Hey!
There we are. It's a bit of a mess, I know, but it's got character.
Where's the dinner?
Oh, you mean the pan-seared wild-caught salmon fillets with garlic lemon roasted asparagus? You see, the thing is, I kind of forgot to go to the farmer's market this morning.
You liar! You're just like everyone else. You just want to use me for my dark hole like some cheap streetwalker.
You got me. I didn't even go to Oxford.
I want to leave. Let me out of here.
Well, I would, but it seems as though someone is blocking the door. Sorry, I'm just no help at all.
You slimy piece of shit! I'm calling the cops! Shit! Get back! Stay away from me!
Whoa! You win, okay? Look, I'm sorry about the phone. Let me give you some cash to pay for it. Then you can leave, all right?
This is such bullshit. I'm never doing this again.
Looks like you brought a knife to a gunfight. Now drop it.
Okay.
Now drop your pants. First, I'm gonna enjoy myself. Then, I'm gonna see how far this cold steel barrel goes in you before I pull the trigger. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a male British serial killer and offender named Stephen Port. He has been convicted for taking out 4 young males, along with several other offenses. The victims were Anthony Walgate, Gabriel Cavari, Daniel Whitworth, and Jack Taylor, who can be seen here. Port went by the moniker the Grindr Killer, as he met his victims online through the dating app Grindr. He lured the victims to his flat, then drugged and violated them, before dumping their bodies close by. The deaths were not seen as suspicious by police until after the 4th death. Of course, this sparked public outrage and accusations against the police. Ultimately, Port received a sentence of life imprisonment.